Them on as Tea Party leaders in Oklahoma are exploring the possibility of creating a new volunteer armed militia because they say the federal government is overstepping its powers. According to the Associated Press, Al Gerhardt, who heads a group called the Oklahoma Constitutional Alliance, supports the idea, saying, and I quote, "Is it scary? It sure is. But when do the states stop rolling over for the federal government?" An Oklahoma State Senator, Randy Brogdon, a Republican who also happens to be running for governor, told the AP he was approached about the idea and believes a state guard would be authorized by the Second Amendment. Now, in case you're wondering, the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, critics of the idea are asking, what exactly would an armed state guard do? How would they fight against the federal government overstepping its powers? This notion has set off a firestorm of controversy, as you can imagine. Today, next week, of course, is the 15th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, and a number of other Republican politicians in the state have criticized the idea of an armed militia. Here's what Republican State Senator Steve Russell said.
I cannot imagine any scenario where the formulation of a militia for ideas along these lines would be a good thing.
State Senator Brogdon says he never called for the creation of a militia, but his statements haven't exactly been clear. Listen.
I'm talking about protecting ourselves as the governor of this state. I will do everything in my constitutional authority to keep Congress within their constitutional authority. Congress is so far overreaching into states' business. It is crippling our economy. The bailouts, the stimulus, Obamacare.
So the question tonight, does he support forming an armed state guard? And if so, what would it actually do to curtail the powers of the federal government? State Senator Randy Brogdon joins me now. Sir, thanks very much for being with us. I know you feel the federal government has overstepped its powers, and certainly a lot of people around the country feel that way, and you haven't called for an armed state guard, but you've also made statements today that make it sound like you do support such a volunteer force. So just for the record, do you?
Well, I certainly support our National Guard. We currently have that, and on the state statute, Section 44 of the Oklahoma Constitution, we already have a state guard. It's just not activated. It's never been organized. I don't really have the historical knowledge of that. But that is something that we do have available to us.
But you've earlier today said that the National Guard was federalized and therefore really wasn't available for some state issues. And again, I mean, it sounds like you're saying the state guard exists in the statutes. Would you support the idea of raising a volunteer state guard?
Well, Anderson, let me frame the debate, and let me make sure your viewers understand what I said. I made a very benign statement yesterday that was picked up on the Drudge Report, simply reaffirming our Second Amendment rights. We here in Oklahoma, we appreciate those Second Amendment rights, and I understand that without the Second Amendment, our Constitution would be in dire trouble. The Second Amendment gives us the right to keep and bear arms. That is unquestionable, it's undeniable. And most citizens here in this state appreciate that. And so that's the story that I was making.
But in the AP article, you had said that you were approached by Tea Party groups about the possibility of some sort of state guard. In the article called a militia, but I know you don't support the idea of a militia. So some sort of volunteer armed force. And it seems, I mean, your critics say you're trying to have it both ways. On the one hand saying, you know, it's allowed for, but without really setting out your own position. So again, I got to ask you, I mean, would you support some sort of volunteer force, call it a state guard, if it's already on the books? Would you support that idea?
Well, here's my position. My position is I would like to see a quiet revolution. I want to see the restoration of our founding principles. I still believe in limited government. I still believe in personal responsibility. I still believe in the expansion of freedom. And all of those things are protected in our Constitution. That is my goal as governor, to protect the citizens of this state, standing on constitutional principles and using my authority as governor to protect the citizens of this state. That is my position on this issue.
Okay, but pardon my ignorance, but I just got to re-ask the question, though. Do you support, you know, one way or the other, yes or no, the idea of some sort of armed state guard?
I certainly support our state guard that is already in the Oklahoma Constitution. That's unquestionable, just like I support our military, just like I support the National Guard. But here's the problem. The National Guard, when they are deployed, they are federalized. The governor has no authority over the National Guard. And when we send so many members out of this state overseas to fight a war, the state of Oklahoma oftentimes is left very vulnerable. And we may have ice storms, we may have tornadoes, where the National Guard is normally called out to help protect the citizens, they're gone. So would I support a state guard to help the National Guard? Of course.
But earlier you seemed to be framing it as something to curtail the powers of the federal government, of an overreaching federal government. How would an armed state guard of volunteers, I suppose, prevent federal laws from infringing on what do you believe are states' rights?
No, my comments on the overreaching of state government, I believe that with all of my heart. I believe Congress is so out of control now. Congress is so reaching into the state of Oklahoma, causing economic havoc with the bailouts, the stimulus schemes, Obamacare, cap and trade. All of these things have caused a devastating effect on the citizens of this state economically. And so those things can be corrected utilizing the rule of law, standing on constitutional principles. The problem is we have had a lack of leadership in this state.
Okay.
And as governor, my sworn duty will be to protect the citizens of this state and hold Congress at bay with the Constitution. So the military is used to fight wars. You know,
just so I'm clear, though, on your position, because earlier in the day, you know, there was a lot of concern about comments you made that may have been misinterpreted, and that's why we wanted to have you on tonight. So just so I'm clear, you would not support if a group of Tea Party activists wanted to arm and form some sort of state guard, that they called it a state guard or whatever they called it, with some idea of somehow curtailing the powers of the federal government. You would not support that notion?
If you're talking about having a state guard to march on Washington, D.C., of course not. You know, this has worked for 234 years. Our nation has been secured and blessed with freedom for all of this time. Right now, we're in trouble in our country because the tenets, the values, and the principles of our Constitution is being abused by Washington, D.C. And I believe in states' rights. I believe when the governors around this nation get a clue of what their responsibility is and stand in the gap between the federal government and the citizens of their state, we can once again return some civility to the state of Oklahoma. We can reclaim what's rightfully ours, and that's freedom and liberty.
So was the article correct in that you were approached by some Tea Party supporters about this idea? And if so, what did you tell them? Did you tell them, I would not support the idea of an armed group?
No, if you read the article on the Drudge Report, the AP article, I had one small quote in that. And here's the problem. I'm running for governor of the state of Oklahoma, and I'm a constitutional conservative. As a matter of fact, I happen to be the most conservative legislator in the entire state of Oklahoma. And I have a target on my back because of that. There are a lot of people that do not appreciate my constitutional conservative values. Now, the people around this state appreciate that a lot. It's some of the politicians that don't.
But did you have members of a Tea Party umbrella group, this gentleman who was quoted, Al Gerhardt, did he approach you about this idea? And if so, what did you tell him?
No, did he approach me? It's been reported that we have had meetings on this subject. Absolutely not true. I have had conversations on a plethora of items and issues for the last year since I've been running for governor, as you would well expect. But my ideas and my goal of good government as governor is just to protect the citizens standing on the rule of law, and that is my goal. So, no, I don't have this clandestine idea of supporting some wild-eyed militia or something like that. My goal is to protect the citizens standing on constitutional principles, and that will be a pretty solid ground to stand on.
Senator Randy Brogdon, appreciate your time tonight, sir. Thank you very much.
You bet, Anderson.
Appreciate it.